Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Dream Labs with Dr. Contrast Live. I just thought I'd take a quick moment here and say hello and back on stream here today, and I just thought we'd take a moment and bring up to speed on what we're going to try and attempt to do today. Very interesting, doing a little research work on some luxury sedans back in the 30s and the 40s in salons, and it was interesting to find out some interesting facts about one of the great manufacturers of that time period was Hispano Suiza. And Hispano Suiza was a combination of a Spanish-Swiss design system, but their claim to fame, quite frankly, was aircraft engine development prior to the 1900s. And in late 1800s, for example, they started a manufacturing concern in Spain and aircraft engines for light aircraft. And I don't know if they did any military work or not, but I think their fame was basically up until that point, until the early 1900s, all aircraft related. And then in 1904, a very interesting thing took place. They'd been to do some experimental work with the up-and-coming trend, and then was the transportation design, ground transportation. So they moved into and founded the vehicle design program and platform in 1904. So in 1904, they started doing a lot of interesting things with the machines, ground related, because at that time it was big in England, for example, was the Rolls-Royce systems, the Bentley people, for example, Voisin in France. All these manufacturers and coach builders were joining into the mix and doing these very custom pieces for the clientele at the time. So the interesting thing about the whole process to me was that Hispano Suiza always had an interesting history because they did some really unique things. Probably was one of the most groundbreaking things they developed in their history. Was in, I don't know what year it was late 30s, I believe. Was a beautiful piece of work, all done in tulip wood. It was an open-wheeled roadster, just phenomenal, all done in tulip wood. If you get a chance to look it up on the internet, it's a Hispano Suiza's tulip wood roadster. Beautiful piece of sculptural work. And then all of a sudden, it began to come through the lines, and it started to do a lot more adventuresome things with aircraft and technology, bring aircraft work into vehicle design. And the one I'm going to pick on here today and worked on today was one of my favorite machines. It's not well publicized. It does, I don't know if there's a lot of hey Marcus, how you doing there? Hey, how you doing there, Jeff? Good to have you on board, man. But it's interesting that Hispano Suiza always had a very interesting format in terms of putting together the combination of little things that they did in the aircraft world, and then brought it back in, for example, to the vehicle manufacturing side. And I think that one of the most unique ones they've done doesn't get a lot of press, but it's still unique. There's a lot of cliches in it, but it was pretty well addressed in Paris. And that is the 1938 Hispano Suiza H6B Dubonnet-Zeno, which this little thumbnail sketch is all about here. So I thought I'd just lay out this little thing about this little piece of history here with the Hispano Suiza H6B. What would happen, for example, if we took that same format and began to look at some of the things they did, and maybe I did a retro piece for today's marketplace in the luxury end. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be a cure-all, but just an investigative look at, all right, there's a great groundbreaking piece of work called the Dubonnet-Zeno, the H6B. In 1938, which is pretty revolutionary for its time. And what would it look like, for example, if we took a chance and face up to today's marketplace? But before I do that, and I did a little rough sketch here and a couple of thumbnail sketches we'll move into in a bit. But one of the things that I thought was really unique about this whole platform was how they handled the cockpit area, for example, the cabin. The mid-cabin area was very much aircrafty, very molded glass canopy. In fact, it was all glass back in those days. The majority, there was a couple of rails across the B pillar, for example, that sustained the structure, but there was a wraparound glass a la aircraft at the time, the glass system. And the other thing they did was unique was this rear quarter attachment on the second floating pillow. It was interesting that they didn't really kind of wrap it back like a Rolls-Royce did and roll it back like they did with the pontoon fender up front, but they actually captured it with a vertical liner and just brought it into the body form, which I thought was a bit of a unique statement to make. Hey, Chip, how are you? Good to have you on board here. Just a little quick study here for a little pencil sketch looking for exploratory, maybe a retro piece for the Hispano Suiza 1938 H6B coupe. A Salon back then, also sedan or coupe variation. It was a very interesting piece of sculpture, I think, back in that time period. And again, the design features, it was pretty common up here. A lot of the pontoon fender was becoming part of the Rogue, and then the real design statement of the day. So they picked up on that. But the unique thing was the mid-cab cabin design, and also the way they handle this recorder. Again, pontoon fender. It wasn't typical. They brought in a very interesting shape here to kind of work with it. So I think those two clues are very strong components and putting in maybe a design system together here. So I thought we'd take a look at a couple of these guys and keep in mind here, and also a very interesting decorative piece. They had this very wedge-like dart-like shield, heraldic shield front end graphic that brought the details back into the quarter panel. So we might look at that as a possibility as well. But I think the most important aspect, the two things I'm going to work on here as far as this design theme is concerned, and that's going to be resolved. I just want to explore some things here today. Round headlights sticking out of the front are also they're very popular back then. You're right, Chip. Very prominent. So, but again, interesting thing. Do you bring that back in the retro piece today? Do you keep it much more linear? Now go vertical with it? How do you handle that? So, as it unfolds here throughout the day, we'll see what takes place. But again, the other neat thing about this, again, I'm going to really pick up on this whole mid-cabin theme and this rear quarter pontoon system here. So let's kind of go back and look at these guys. Just laid out a real quick rough sketch here. What if we took that thing and kind of spiked off the front end here, brought this back a bit, and extended this through, and didn't pick up so much of the pillowed effect of the, hey, how you doing, Justin? How are you? Good to have you on board, man. Thank you. HB study here today, H6B. Pardon me, I'm losing a little bit of the pieces here. Just, again, a graphic study for us and picking up on some design clues for me and potential in the modern genre. What would that begin to look like today here? So let's kind of look at this guy. So I did a little pencil sketch here. Let's kind of take that upper through. Bring this into play. Get that back line in there. Now notice, this is where I'm going to pick up this hip. Now, it kind of comes in and dovetails and mirrors into a vertical, actually a very solid vertical break there into the rear quarter. So I think I'm going to just take this guy and bring it back in like so. And then just kind of let it go back as a shape. And again, pick up that same rear, so it goes off the rear wheels. And back in through here. And pick up a little bit of that lower piece here. Again, cockpit. Mid-cabin, very much aircraft upper, and just kind of roll this thing right back into that. Just got a little bit of tone in this thing. Bring that right through. Maintain that aircraft, that canopy look that one established in 1938 here. So now let's go back in here. Little ground line presence. No, so we come straight. If you notice the original 1938 piece, that headline just slowly rolls uphill. There's just a little bit more of like an inclined plane to it. It was an interesting approach. So we're trying to maintain that in these little elevation studies of these new retro pieces here, but trying to stay away from the pontoon typical approach, bringing this curl back into it. We're already playing up with this rear deck system here, this pontoon rear fender area. Very intriguing. Now let's go back in. Maintain that very large, voluptuous wheel disc. Maintain that flavor. Got some of the shadow of that disc around there. And pick up some of the same concentric circles on this thing. Line weight change. Maybe just a touch of a simple little bit of a value piece in there to kind of get this thing to read for us here. Take this through. bit of tone change in there. It's kind of an interesting, maybe a two-tone look that thing might be kind of cool with. I don't know. See if I can kind of rejuice this guy a little bit. Put that one aside and if we can get another one here. Let's see, we're rolling with this guy. This is better, I think. A little bit of width in this beauty. Let's come underneath and pick that up just a bit more. And just for what it's worth, a little bit of mystery in this, a little bit of accent piece in here. A little bit of sky tone in the glass. Pick up a little bit of that blistered area there. And let's see, we'll come back in and maybe hit just a little bit more of an accent here to get the ground shadow over. There he is. Real quick empathic little sketches here, trying to get a little bit of flavor of what we want to do with this guy in a retro process here. Let's see here. A little bit of shadow there. Let's emphasize the ground line. What do you think, gang? There's phase one. Any interest there at all? Just trying to, again, really play up on this very large, very unique rear hip area here this thing was dealing with and working with it back in its day. Pardon me, I keep losing this. And just picking up that same strong theme coming up the rear quarter. And then ignoring that, not ignoring it, but just, let's get a little bit of staying away from the cliche of trying to pick up that same forward pillow there. Looks like a missile. Hey, all right. I should have known better, right? There it is. It looks like a missile. Thanks, Chip. One of these days, I'm going to start doing some missile design, and then we'll see if we can get some impact there. But overall, I mean, I think it's a delicate line to follow here because you're looking at the possibility of going too far with it and too extreme or too cliched. I don't want to get into a situation where this becomes you could actually pull, what I'm trying to do is really kind of clean the form up a little bit, not that it needs it. It's a very elegant statement back in the 30s, no doubt. But I think the unique thing is just trying to get back into more of a character reference of what it might look like in terms of trying to bring in the modern genre. Notice I still want to keep the other unique thing we didn't talk about in the very beginning of the intro here was this. It's a very also strong statement about, look at the length of the hood to the upper. It's really, really prominent. So I want to keep that really active in terms of some of the little thumbnail sketches we're going to do here today to kind of look for another approach at it. So there's phase one. Let's go back in and pick up another one here. A little bit less streamlined here. Let's kind of chisel this off. Take that line through, flatten it up just a bit, and create some tension on here. Bring the hood line up just a bit into the upper. Load it back, and again, let's play this off of the real strong off this hip here. Let's play this off of that, and right up the rear wheel. And again, same real strong, bold aircraft canopy look to it here. Let's take them over the top of the roof. Let's dip it down just a bit, and let's bring this back. Again, real strong. Again, playing this whole rear quarter section up and bringing it right into play here to kind of pull the thrust forward and take it away from being the cliched front pin, so to speak. Again, let's put a little bit of tone in this thing first. So where we are graphically here. Get that canopy to read. Take that on through. So plant this guy a little bit. Rise the line in this thing. I don't know, it's just a little bolder. I mean, it takes it and stretches that rear quarter line out a little bit. I think this got kind of a neat stance to it. section-wise, it can be very interesting. You can actually take this thing and be very, almost rolls-like, very, very rigid in the front quarter. And as it comes rearward, really begin to take this thing and roll it underneath and just get more of a collapse to it here. Just a little sneaky. Let's try this thing and expose a little bit of the rear wheel here. Again, let's maintain that same kind of royal covered rear wheel. And again, that same process up front here. Get that into play here, take that back again. Again, really emphasize the boldness of this strong front door. Let's tie that right into the body section here. Bring that into that. There you go. Really round looking door. That's got some elegance to it. Just kind of rolls back a little bit and just kind of plays into this whole idea of keeping the spirit of the España Suiza 6B and the Dubline Xenia, but it still brings it into the modern genre. I'm not quite sure yet if this is the actual final design piece here, but let's see what happens when we kind of lay in a little bit of tone here. And let's get this ground line down just a bit more here. Let's get that base set up. Far side wheel. Some more shadow down here. You guys are quiet out there. What do you think so far? Making sense? Trying to maintain the spirit of a very prominent Salon back in its day in 1938. Just what it looks like something James Bond would run. Yeah, both. Let's hope so. Yeah, stirred but not shaken. Just really booming here. That's an interesting comment here, guys. And again, it really is incumbent, I think, to me, the real key is this upper, that aircraft, which they were famous for. Part of the 1900s, they did a lot of really nice aircraft work. It was a formed glass canopy, so they maintained that look in the original 38. And again, that same hip difference. I don't know why they chose to do that very unusual form, that almost tulip form, into the actual body form itself. But it's unique. Better than seeing the gurney nutting approach, where they have the pillow pores of the body form in the rocker and then back in the pillow again in the pontoon. So they actually eliminated that. But again, going back to a little bit more forceful piece, let's put a bit of tone in this, see what it looks like here. A little bit of body side in this thing. Let's get a little bit of tone in this thing too, bring it right into the wheels. Just some real quick little empathy studies here. Let's take it through. Stick it underneath. More shadow in that guy. Use the lead to kind of give a little more tone to it. More reflective light. Let's take it there and right into this rear quarter here. Let's kind of roll this back just a bit more. Let's take this into play. Tone that back. Something beginning to happen here. Let's do this. I'm going to come back here and just pick up a little bit. Let's cheat this guy. Oop, let me get this down into play here. Put the horizon line back on the glass just a bit here. Change value just a touch. A little bit of marker, pencil. Just real quick rough studies here. Trying to put this guy together here. Again, the intent is to keep as much spirit of that initial 38 debut machine that they introduced back in the day, and then really kind of maintain itself. And it was really interesting too. I think, well, I forgot to bring this up in part of the conversation. It was interesting too that after they did this thing in 1938, they kept manufacturing different sedans and coupes and so forth for the marketplace and for nobility in Europe and the like, and they survived. And it was interesting to find out that in 2019, they went to this Geneva Auto Show with an updated version of this H6B called the Dubonnet Xenia. But it was interesting. They called it the Carmen. And I don't know about you, but if you get a chance to look it up, it was debuted in 2019, an all-electric program. They're still building cars. But when I looked at it, I thought, geez, it really didn't bring in that same elegance of the original H6B. It was much more, hey, how you doing? Alice Vibe, how are you? Thank you for joining us here today. Where about you coming in from? Al's Vibe. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, but thank you very much for joining us. Where are you coming in today from? It's interesting to hear from you. Super cool. But again, if you get a chance to look at this retro 2019 piece, they reviewed again and made a debut in the Geneva Auto Show in 2019, and it didn't have the same spirit. It didn't have the same character. It was trying to be a supercar, and this whole platform was not a supercar. It was a very elegant, tailored touring salon back in the 30s and the 40s, a very noble looking machine. And the new one the 19 version just did not look like it at all. So that's what kind of challenged me to go back and look at it and say, what can we do with it to get to kind of come back into play here? So let's kind of go back just a bit here. Put a bit of tone in this, a little bit of color. There it is there. Let's put a little bit of that and a little reflected light back in these wheel covers. Let's see what we've got here. Let's go back in and look at these guys. Let's do a little more tone to this thing. Pardon me. Hope this is working all right. Hey, Chip, I prefer the flat nose of the bottom car. Yeah, you do? Me too. It's a little newer looking, isn't it? I'm good, and I'm all from that CC80 class. We were in 499p. Awesome seeing you on Twitch. Hey, thanks very much. Very good. Thank you very much. It's nice to have you on board. Nice to have you join in here today. Yeah, I think you're right, Chip. There's something about that's a cliche form, but this chip nose is this very, very blunt look. Has a little bit more modern genre to it. It's almost a Rolls or Bentley like. So we're getting a little closer. I prefer the flat nose. All right. Thank you very much for the input. Anybody else, feel free, man. This is your show. Let's go back and put more tone in this thing. A little more body side here. There's a little value study. They get it to read. I'm going to put a little over there. More tone up on top here. Kind of take that back into the teardrop. And there's phase number 2. I mean, let's go back and look at this thing from the point of view. Pardon me. A little bit more wheel spin to this thing. Maintain that same kind of luxury disc that the original had. So there's 2 variations on the theme right there that I think might be kind of interesting to look at. Pardon me. Oh, I'm losing my voice here. So there's 2 real quick studies based on where we started with. Is again in 1938. It's mine in Suiza. H6B Salon, very interesting form. Again, aircraft work and so forth, and then the rear quarter panel was really interesting how they handle that rear quarter area. And then from there, let me get this all squared away here. And from there, they actually moved away from it. They became much more formal as time moved on back in the late 30s and early 40s. They went more to the gurney nutting side, very formal, stiff-looking machine work and the like. Again, our intent today is to look at this thing and say, what would happen if we brought this very vehicle into today's modern genre here? So let's do this. But I also did this ahead of time here. I went ahead, based on phase 2 here, put together a sketch here. I'm going to go back and work on these guys a little bit here. This is maybe a variation on theme that might fit today's genre in terms of where they were back there and where we are today. Now, I'm really not enamored with the front end graphics yet, but I think some of that, if we look at this, for example, some of the rear quarter area here might be kind of intriguing to work with, interesting to look at. Capturing a little bit more of that, again, that rear quarter area, that and the blistered area and the rear quarter panel, bringing it forward, a little more thrust into that shape itself. And then coming back in with a little bit more of a streamlined front end that it's okay, but I'm not really quite sure it's there yet. Let me do this for a second. Let's kind of switch gears and work on this thing for a second. Let's put that aside for a moment since we've already got that first phase in. Let's go back and look at this just for a moment. See what happens when we go back and develop this guy a little further. Just a little bit of tint in this thing here. some of this out of the way. The horizon line on this guy. Preserve a little bit of that catwalk up front there, and I'm not really quite sure. It's too small. Yeah, I think you're right there, Chip. I'm really not quite there yet with that front end. I might just go ahead and take some more time here to kind of develop it a little further as we go on along the line here. If we carry this series on, maybe on Thursday or whatever, but just put a little bit of tone back into this thing here. I think we go back to maybe a rounder lengthening system and maybe blunt this out a little further, then take a little deeper. Kind of nice. It could be a little bit more of an approachable design solution here. A little bit more tone in this thing where that catwalk is. Kind of preserve that just a bit. Take it in behind the form itself. A little more hood. Let's see if I can get another marker here to work with for here. Let's see. There it is there. This number one here to kind of juice a bit for it. There we are. This hopefully shall be better. Let's see what happens here. Then we can back in and tighten this thing down just a bit. A little more reflected light up on top. That's better. The catwalk preserved. Running through very nicely. And again, down below. Just let that kick a certain way. And let's get that horizon line to kind of be a little crisper here. There we are. There's a little bit of value study to kind of go from one comparison to another. And I do agree, Chip at all, and if you guys are in the same boat, just kind of do this. Just put a bit of pen detail in this guy. This would be an interesting feature here. Instead of having the original H6B, that whole very elaborate escutcheon air cooling system along the body side, just bring it up on top of the hood line and just let that kind of be like almost a shelf. It cuts back underneath and gives you a little bit of breathability in the upper surface here. So that'd be a little feature of design there. And again, the same principle. It's going to tighten this down just a bit here. Yeah, I think you're right, Chip. I'm just going to go back and take another look at this front end graphic here. Just want to get a character down here to begin with here today. Let's see what we're going to deal with here. Let's put a little more animation up in that reflection. Let's get this down here. Let's get that real strong spike line to work for us here. Again, coming off that rear quarter, really making a statement. Let me ask you, how do you feel about that whole approach here, gang? You're looking at this little study here. Is it valid to go ahead and take advantage of this rear quarter hip, this pontoon system? Look what we've got here, and just stretch that just a bit. Let that become basically the design theme as opposed to the actual pontoon fender itself. So I think that might be an interesting aspect to work with here in terms of looking at what to do with this guy. Let's put a little bit of this in place. Your assistance, sir, would be very greatly appreciated. Just a little touch of color in there to see what it might look like. Hips are a bit too fat. Might be, oh, a bit too big, huh? That's interesting. We can kind of pull that back a little bit here, Chip, and take some of the weight out of it. But again, just trying to get the character down here for this guy. Let's kind of put this together here for where we are here. All right, so there it is. It's a little first pass at getting this thing to kind of run a little bit here for us. And sure, there's a lot of little things I'd like to really kind of clean up on here, but let's get this, get that. Make sure we emphasize where that catwalk is. Rolls off here. Comes in, then breaks back, then disappears somewhere just inside the quarter there. So there's another shot at it here. Hey, hips are a bit too fat, and would it work if we brought the top band on the hood all the way to the headlights? All the way to the headlights. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Want to give that a try? See what that does. Pretty interesting comment there, Chip. Super. See what it does. Nice call, my man. Is that what you were getting at? Just to strengthen that thing just a bit? I don't know if that's what you had in mind there, Chip, but that's an interesting approach to it. Here, let's kind of get that to roll a little bit, and that's going to come in and do the same thing here. Let's catch this on the other side. Keep it nice and compatible. We're about maybe a third of the way through here. Over the top of this thing. What do you think? It seems more monolithic and having vents. Yeah, that's interesting. Very good, good call there, Chip. Looking good. Bring that on through. Back that on through. There it is there. Now, that established that. So let's kind of look at a couple of little elevation studies here to see if we've got anything that kind of any worthwhile here. Let's do it in this. Go back into this. Take some of the weight out of this thing here. Still play up that leaning fender. Let's get that very uphill drive in the actual form itself. And let's just kick this back, just a little bit less of it. Let's do this. Bring that forward just a bit more. to maintain that certain roundness in the front end here. Yeah, it seems more monolithic than having vents. Yeah, okay, it's the comment there. That's cool. There it is. And a little graphics in here. Now let's see if we can get a little bit of tone in this thing here. All right, gang. What do you think that? Chip, a little lighter, a little more of a stance to it. And I tell you what, if let's see. Hey, Justin, if you're still there, what do you think of this approach here? It's making sense as far as a retro piece goes, or yeah, that's a little bit less weight back here. I think you're right, Chip. That kind of comes uphill. This kind of drops off just a bit more, so it's a little bit more intriguing to it. Let's put a little bit of shadow. Let's put this guy down here just a bit. And Justin, if you're still there, what do you think, man? You're part of this team now. A little bit of graphics in this guy. We'll tighten that down in just a few moments. Just get the glass to work a little bit. So there it is there. Let's put a bit of this lighter tone in here thing. Yeah, quite nice. Hey, all right, Chip, thank you. Much better. That's a little bit of tone in this thing. Let's kind of take this downhill just a bit now. Alrighty, let's see what happens here with this guy. Let's tighten this down. This window graphic, they're going to tighten up just a bit. Little surface change underneath here. We're trying to maintain that whole tension from the original piece here. Maintain the tension between this approach and the body form itself by just stretching that forward and eliminating that pontoon fender up on top there. So that's what I'm really trying to concentrate on here for what it's worth. And here we are. Let's get a bit more tone in this. Boulder up on top here. Just got to put a little bit of this, a little bit of tone in this thing too. There's that under there. We'll come back in. So there we are. There's another little variation on theme here, trying to look at something that just kind of gives us a little bit more of a contemporary presence of this very beautiful 1938 H6B from Hispania Suiza. So come back and do the last little thumbnail study here. Bring that drive line, really extreme glass low here. Let's really make it extreme with this thing now. A little bit more conceptual. Let's bring this off of the. Still just trying to maintain that real strong rear quarter pull forward on the design theme itself. Much more extreme. And that might play into this whole upper, just be a little bit of a, like almost a two-tone paint system here coming off that front quarter into the glass. Another approach. Now a bit of tint on this thing, see what it looks like. There it is. A little bit of tint in this guy, a little bit of sky tone in this thing. See what we come up with here. A bit of a glass work in here. There we are there. Let's go this. Yeah, let's get this a little lighter. Yeah, 41 probably the better approach here. Ground line down just a bit here. All right, let's see what we come up with here. More emphasis in some of these major design lines. Alrighty, there we are. I think I've just kind of kept that pretty interesting theme there in terms of trying to maintain some of the initial properties of that H6B program we're working at here with this this new look at it here. The initial, what we started with here, the initial sketch on the actual piece itself. I'm not really quite enamored with the results here of the facelift here. I think some things happening back here a little slight, could we possibly lighten this up a little bit and take more advantage of maybe less of the sloped front end and be more chiseled, like Chip's comment earlier about I think I was referring to this guy as very much more contemporary looking, I think, in terms of just so very much different in terms of trying to maintain some of the flavor, some of the features of that vehicle, and then at the same time capturing some newness in terms of what it looked like in the retro portion today of today's marketplace. So very interesting set of circumstances here, gang. And let's see, Jason, if you're still there, any comment at all about closing things up here in terms of where we are? Comment very quiet here, guys. Really interesting. And again, so much in terms of thank you for the input here, guys. It's a little bit of a retro change here, a little bit of a design system. We're going back to the history of some of the great manufacturers. For example, Hispania Suiza, there was the original concept sketch of the H6B Salome at 1938 variation, and come back and try to pick up on some of the very interesting themes of the machine itself, the aircraft canopy, which they were famous for part of the 1900s, and then this rear three-quarter, instead of going back into this very much this pillowed shape and this very romantic pontoon form front and rear, to pick up on that design theme and a little bit of that design theme and bring it back into the modern generation of what it might look like in terms of just some elevation studies here to kind of take a peek at it here. So that's where we started, the first two sets, and we went into a little three-quarter front. Not quite there yet with this guy. I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of maybe making some front end changes. And I really had a chance to analyze this too much before we started to go on the air today. I just wanted to take a good shot at maybe putting a comparison piece together. But I think some of these guys have got some character to it in terms of maybe transferring it back into some of the three-quarter front and see what it might look like, with maybe reducing some of the weight of the hip back there. Your point, Chip, was well taken. So anybody else? Justin, how about you? Any comment in closing here? Just yays, nays, likes, and dislikes? Very open season here, folks. There's a lot of things going on. As far as the design flavor goes, I think it's very good to have your input in terms of what you see and what I don't see, and I think going through the thinking process, very, very helpful. No question about that at all. So I'll just wait a moment here. Any closing commentary from you guys? And again, Alice, I really, really appreciate you coming on board here. The CCAD class, it was pretty interesting. 99P, great stuff. Yeah, very good. You guys did a great job down there. I was very happy. Moar missiles. Okay, maybe that's the next video we'll do with this thing, Chip, to kind of get some more tension in this thing. But again, Justin, again, if you're there, please, any input you've got there would be very, very helpful. Just something about the graphics of the original, especially the original. Go back to the original concept machine here. There's something very romantic about what they did with this whole process. It was a really interesting looking machine. So maybe kind of revisit it again and not give up on, maybe go back to more of a traditional front end on this thing for maybe. Hey, thanks very much, Chip. Really appreciate you coming on board here, and have a great day. Take care of yourself, and thank you. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday. I won't be on streaming tomorrow. On Wednesday, I'm going to switch my schedules, maybe at Tuesdays and Thursdays, and get more content done. So anyway, there we are, gang. That's what we go. There's the first one. There's the second sheet we kind of put together. Very simple little graphic forms here to kind of cut it all into place here. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you have any interest in things you want to discuss or cover, please drop me a note on my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. Be happy to review things there and look at them and put them into the program here. And if you're interested in drawing systems at all, please visit my website at drcontrast.com. All lowercase. There's a nice series of digital learning lessons there, getting into things like basic perspective, light source, surface work, section work, and contour. A lot of interesting things. 9 lessons, and I think you'll find it enjoyable. And again, that can be found at drcontrast.com. So once again, thanks very much for your time here, guys. And I think the most important part of the whole stream today is this one. When I close with it, it's always important to me that never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day and take care. Thank you. Bye-bye now.